has had a creative or a playful experience this week? Who's with your children, at work? Not enough people, actually. Not enough people, okay. I'm from Lego, and if you have children, or maybe if you don't have children, but you may know us as a company, we make what we call construction toys, and they are a creative and learning play experience. And we think that creativity and learning is really, really important, particularly in the world at the moment, that some of the big challenges that you heard this morning will require creativity and learning to solve some of those challenges. And the people who are going to solve them are our customers today, the children that we deal with today. So what I'm going to talk to you is just about some of the stuff that we've done as a company, and hopefully it will generate some thoughts amongst you. We're not at all saying that we have all the answers. We're not saying that we've made super progress, but we do think that we're on the right track, and I'd love to hear from you as well on whether you believe that's the case as well. So we're talking about a business case for sustainability, and our ambition as a company is to have a positive impact on the world, and I think lots and lots of people say that. But what we mean by that is we believe that if the Lego Group wasn't here in the world, we would hope that people would miss us. We would hope that people would feel that we bring something positive to the world. And that's, as I said before, it's about children, and it's about inspiring and developing what we call builders of tomorrow. They are the people who will shape the world that we live in the next 20 years. As an introduction to the company, we were founded way back in 1932, and I always like to say we're the world's largest manufacturer of tyres. They're just very small tyres, but we are the world's biggest tyre manufacturer. We also make 1 million minifigures a day, so 1 million little people a day. And so 2019 is the date when there will be more Lego people on the planet than there are humans. So that creates an issue for us. That is a lot of stuff. That's a lot of material. 1 million minifigures a day, 1 million little people. So when I first started at the company, I think we said that we're about 60 Lego bricks for every person on the planet. I think there are now about 90 Lego bricks for every person on the planet. So again, it's stuff, it's materials, and what we want to do is create that positive impact on the world, but eliminate our negative impact on the world. So all in all, cohesively, we can say across corporate social responsibility and our use of materials and resources that we create a positive impact on the world. Why do we do it? Like many companies, it's part of our heritage. Started in 1932 making wooden toys. We now are pretty much the world's biggest toy maker. It's a family-owned company, and these are the 3 generations of the family. We're now in the 4th generation as we speak. So the little chap there, he's now, I think he's about 65. I hope he wouldn't mind me saying that. And his son, Thomas, is about my age, and he's about to step into those shoes. The unique thing about our company being family-owned is that we're not driven solely by money. And I think what I want you to look at here is the promises that we make up on this slide here. We make 4 promises: the play promise, the partner, the planet, and the people. Play promise is about the kind of toys we make and what people think about them, what our consumers think about those. Partners is the people we work with in our supply chain. Planet is the environment, but it's also the social aspect of that. It's not just about environmental sustainability, and you heard a bit about that this morning, that it's a holistic view. And people is about our employees, the people who work for us. And each one of those boxes comprises 20% of our management's bonus. So my CEO and our top-level management, 20% of their bonus is related to our environmental and social impact. 20% is the products we make, 20% is how people perceive us as a company to work with, as a partner, and 20% is how people perceive us as a company to work for, our people promise. Only 20%, the final 20% of their bonus, so the 5th part, is made up of the financial performance of the company. Only 20%. The company itself is 25% owned by charity. So the Lego Foundation promotes creativity, learning and play across the world, and so 25% of our profits go directly to charity. So I think it's really important to embed that right at the core of the company, that people know that 20% of their take-home pay at the end of the year is about doing good for the planet and society. And what we see a lot is that where CEOs come in with a very, very strong mandate, and in this case our CEO and our owner family, but if you don't embed that into the company, when the CEO retires, because often their mandate is one that they drive as their last tour of duty, when they retire, that mandate, if it doesn't stick in the company, then the mandate tends to disappear because you're not using the CEO as the spearhead. So when we first started looking at this, I think early in the 2000s, like many companies, we decided where should we focus, and we did an environmental impact assessment, and only 10% of our impact is in our own operations. We're quite unique in the world in that in consumer goods is that we own and operate our own factories. So we do all of the manufacturing, right from the concept design until the boxes are shipped out of our factories. And we have factories in Mexico, we have 3 in Europe, and we're just building 1 in China. And they serve their own home market, so we cut down the transport between those factories. Only 10% sits in our own operations. 75% sits in our supply chain, and that's predominantly through the plastic that we use, so ABS plastic, and the packaging. And they're actually quite finely balanced between the two impacts. And then about 15% sits in our downstream. And I think that number's a bit high, because that's based on general consumer product metrics. I actually gave a bucket of Lego bricks to my 3-year-old son the other day, and those bricks were given to me by my dad when I was about 4 or 5, and those were bricks that he had, and he bought them in about 1958, 1959, and they are still playable today, they still work, and that's why the 15% we don't believe is quite accurate here, because we haven't really seen any whole-scale disposal of Lego bricks. Some people do, they accidentally end up in the trash, but what we really encourage people to do is to donate them, pass them on, give them to people, and keep that creativity and learning alive, and we try and guide people as much as possible to do that. We've set some targets and some goals in 2 key areas around climate change and resources, and we are committed to being 100% renewable energy by 2020. We also want to, before that really, and that's the sort of icing on the cake, we want to cut our energy consumption, and we've increased our energy efficiency by 2.5% year on year, and that's through standard business cases around insulating pipework. Our new factory in China is 100% LED lighting, which is the first time we've ever done that. And we've put solar water heating on the roof of the factory as well. And we also are working with our suppliers and working with WWF as part of their Climate Savers program to encourage and help our suppliers to follow us on this journey. And it's not about telling our suppliers what to do. We don't turn up at a buyer meeting and just say, but you need to do this. We really want to find shared value and shared projects where we can come together and have a win-win. Because otherwise it's not sustainable in the long term if we're just telling them what to do. They need to also come along on the journey with us and see that benefit. On designing materials, we have 100% FSC, which is Forestry Stewardship Council packaging, so it's paper and pulp that comes from sustainably managed sources. And on average, globally, about a 75% recycled content in the packaging. In our own operations, our target is to achieve 95% landfill diversion and to improve waste efficiency by 7.5%. And I think that was something that we really reflected on. We actually had and I think one of my messages is to be careful on the metrics you choose. Because we had a metric on 95% landfill diversion, and you can still achieve that even though you pass through very high volumes of waste through the system. If you're recycling it, you can meet that target. And it really, we had to reflect and say, no, the first thing we should be doing, which sounds obvious, but is reduce, reuse, recycle. We should be reducing the amount of waste we generate in the first place before we recycle. So we had to completely rehash or relook at our metrics again, because metrics, once you set them, they will drive people in the business on a certain direction. Over the long term, as I mentioned, 100% renewable energy, and we would like to start to look at CO2 reduction programs and set some metrics with our suppliers over the long term. Pursuing sustainable raw materials, and ultimately we want zero waste in our production, which is, when you get up to the 90s, 95%, it becomes very, very hard, that last couple of percentage, You know, if you can imagine your own waste in your own home, you can recycle your paper and your glass and your metal. That's relatively straightforward to do. But when you come to the more complex ends of the spectrum, it gets a bit harder, but we're working really hard on that. And so what I'm going to do is just show you a few examples of what that means. In climate change, we've invested 800 million euros, so nearly €1 billion in renewable energy. That's money out of our pocket as a company, into 2 major wind farms, one off the coast of Germany, a place called Borkum-Riffgrund, 50 kilometers off the coast, and actually only 3 people in the Lego group have seen that wind farm because it's so far away in the middle of the sea, which is hard to communicate to your employees when only 3 people have seen it. And then another wind farm we're just having constructed off the coast of Liverpool in the UK. We've achieved a 14% energy efficiency increase, and I think what we're open about is that as we grow as a company, and we're growing rapidly, we're actually using more energy. So we use about 9% more energy each year. But we are getting better at using it, but we're still using more of it, and that's something that we're really working hard to tackle. And then finally, we're the first toy companies to join the WWF Climate Savers Partnership, which is a really, really great program and a broad-based coalition of many companies who sign up and commit to a number of targets. On resources, I'll talk about this a little later, but our Green Box initiative, we've shrunk the size of our packaging, which is a very, very, actually, it sounds simple, but quite a complex thing to do, because you need to talk to the guys who work on the production lines, you need to talk to the retailers who stock your products, because that changes their shelf layout. You need to talk to customers, because often customers like to give a nice big box at Christmas, so we're making, and enabling them to give a slightly smaller box at Christmas. And then FSC packaging, which I also mentioned. The waste diversion, which I've talked about, so 93% was our figure. Our target is 95. 93 is what we hit last year. And then finally, we've invested 1 billion Danish kroner, which sounds great, isn't it? It's a lot of money, 1 billion kroner. How many people know what that means? Yeah, it's about 150 million euros to put it into context, into sustainable materials, and those are what I'll talk in a couple of slides' time. This is on our climate change. There's a picture of our wind farm under construction in Germany, and that's, you know, these are big projects. As I say, nearly 1 billion euros of spend have gone into those projects. And the reason why we can make some of those business cases is right back to the beginning, when I talked about having 4 key parts of our promise around planet, people, partner, and play. It's because that's how you create a business case, and looking at all of the aspects of our business, about our corporate reputation, what people think of us, about the products we make, about the money we make as a company, but it's not the only thing we consider when we look at those business cases. Yeah, on resources, so I talked about the sustainable materials journey that we're on. We had to come up with a definition for sustainable materials. You know, the one thing that people know, or many people know, is that Lego is made of plastic. But what does a more sustainable material look like? And we thought we would just go off the shelf and get a definition for that. But every company has a different interpretation of it, and every NGO speaks to as well. So we've had to find one that fits, or that works with us, that we think is challenging. So it's something that we believe meets our high quality and safety standards, but has key social and environmental attributes. One thing is we won't negotiate on this journey to find sustainable materials by 2030, and that's our target, is to be 100% in sustainable materials by 2030 in our products and our packaging. We won't negotiate on safety, on the quality of the product, and on the durability of the elements. And one discussion we did have was on durability. Should we make biodegradable Lego elements? We said, no, that's not what we're about. We're about a product that lasts a long time, that creates value for children over the generations. And the quality is a really difficult issue. You know, we mold our bricks to about 2 microns, which is less than the thickness of a human hair in terms of precision. We have to color them all the same, so when you build a wall of yellow bricks, they need to look all the same colored yellow. They have a certain shininess. They have a certain sound when you mix a bucket of bricks together. And trying to replicate all of those things in a sustainable material is a super difficult thing to do. And that's why we believe it's going to take us to at least 2030 to do it. And we believe that's a very, even still a very, very tough and challenging timescale. Internally, we call it our moonshot. You know, we really hope we can do it, and we want to partner with people to get to that point. On the right-hand side is our criteria: no non-desirable chemicals, sustainably sourced and manufactured feedstock. There's no point having a brick that's sustainable in your hand if the process to get there wasn't a very nice process, if it's a bio-based material, if the crops were grown with lots of fertilizers, or the raw material was processed using lots of energy, just because it feels sustainable at the end of the life doesn't mean that it was throughout its processing. And minimum waste in the value chain, again, no point having a sustainable brick if it created thousands of tons of waste, water and plant material on the way. So that's what we want to do. We want to do that by 2030. This is our goal, as I mentioned, to use sustainable materials in all our core products. And there's two parts of that. We say there's a technical mission on the blue brick there, and there's an engagement mission. We have to technically find those materials, and we have to put them into production. And we have thousands of molds out there. So, we really hope we can find a material that will fit our current molding process. But maybe we have to look at a total different way of creating Lego bricks. And lots of people will be thinking of 3D printing, and there's some challenges around that. We can talk about that later. And on the other side, we have to engage with people. There are some very difficult questions around sustainable materials. There are some very difficult challenges around sustainable materials, and we're going to have a dialogue and a conversation with lots of people, and probably many of you in this room, around how do we address some of those challenges and difficulties along the way. And underpinning, we've made a commitment to build a Sustainable Materials Centre, and this is a building that will open in our headquarters in rural Billund in Denmark, where I live and work. And that will be a centre for materials research and expertise involving outside partners. We hope also parents and children and universities and suppliers, either new suppliers or existing suppliers, to come and help us work on this key challenge. Two examples I want to leave you with then of some of the work we've already done. I mentioned Project Greenbox. So this was, as you can see on the slide there with it's the left-hand slide, and what you see is there, it's shrinking the box by about 18%. So that's saved us about 4,000 truckloads of deliveries per year, about 7,000 tons of material, and a very, very simple project on the outset, but actually quite complex to put it into production. Because you need to pack the box and in a certain way and make sure that you can close the box at the end of the process. Because essentially what we're doing is just taking all of the air out of the box. And so that's been a real success for us, and I think, again, proving the business case is about wrapping all the different parts together. So it saves money, it uses less material. Actually, the retailers found they can stock the same amount of products in a smaller shelf area, so they were happy about that as well. And we can get greater what we call pallet utilization. You can put more products in a pallet and ship them around the world. On the right-hand side is our elimination of blister packaging. You see it's the same product. On the left part there is a cardboard container. On the right is what we call a plastic blister. So that's like a laminated plastic clamshell blister. And they're not very easy to recycle because they're two materials co-bonded together. And by putting it into a different package, we reduce the environmental impact by 20% and reduce the cost of the packaging by 30%. My last example is what I've got in my hands here. It's what we call a Duplo wheelbase. So this is what we used to have. It's like a little base, and it's a preschool, so for children up to about 3-4 years old, they can build little vehicles on the top of this wheelbase. And we have a process we call the element design review, so we try to remove as many mixed materials from our elements as possible, and ultimately aiming for design for disassembly, which means eventually, and we haven't seen the end of life yet, but when the end of life does come, it can be recycled in a single material stream. And so this wheelbase, you probably can't see it, but you can see it on the picture, it has some metal axles in it. So two materials, meaning it needs some element of separation. And we would grade that as yellow on our material score, red being where there's electronics involved, and sometimes there are on our products, and green being where there's just a single material. So we said, how do we take this wheelbase from yellow into green? And we took out the metal axles and we replaced them with plastic plugs. So they look exactly the same, they perform the same function. Well, what we did was we cut the manufacture time by half. That also cut the cost of the wheelbase by half, and it improved the sustainability of the wheelbase by it was about 30 to 45%, depending on the different metrics you use. So by using a green lens on a problem, we were able to create a win-win for both the business and for the environment and our planet promise. And critically, it's also safer for children because the wheels are physically fixed on to the wheelbase there. So I just wanted to share with you those two examples that when you do use a green lens and when you consider the business case in its total holistic sense, so not just the financial case, but also the impact on quality of the product, the impact on safety, the impact on your employees, and this also creates a very strong employee brand, which is another thing that we're very keen. We want people to come and work for the Lego Group. When you consider all of these things in the round, you can create some really compelling business cases. There's a lot of work to do. We're not there yet. These are only just a few examples, and there are some where it's really, really tough. But we believe, like a lot of companies you've heard from, that it is truly a journey. So thank you very much, and I really look forward to talking with some of you on this journey that we're on. Thanks a lot.